I just want to talk about yellow cabs because I don't care about the other cabs. I'm from Manhattan. And so my question is, what are some ideas you have for making sure that that industry is whole, satisfied from driver to passenger? How some drivers hate curb, hate allure, and then some friend of mine the other day, she got charged $60 to go from one side of Central Park to the other using curb. So there's issues with that. And how would you address keeping the yellow cab industry more whole? How would you address curb and allure if they are successful? There are, I believe, thousands of cars in the garages. How would you get them on the streets? And do you think the green cars, I guess, are disappearing? What's going to happen as a result? Those are some issues, and I have more. But I'm all about the yellow cabs. I do not care
I'll
about those
start
other
off
ones.
first, if you don't mind. As I mentioned earlier, being on the commission for the last 6.5 years, and we've seen what's happened to the yellow medallions, and all the sad stories. I think one of the things that the TLC did in capping the full high vehicle licenses was start. Obviously, a little too late, unfortunately, but it was a start with the right goal to try to keep the balance somewhat back to normal, even though it's still way high that it should be, as we know. So I think that is something that we need to continually monitor. I know every 6 months we check the results of how that's moving, and we make adjustments if we need to. So that needs to be continue to be done. The medallion relief program that we passed for the medallion owners with large debt was important and vital, and I voted for that twice. The enhanced one as well, so I'm proud of that. So I believe we need to continue. It's iconic. The yellow. I live in New York my whole life, and I plan on staying here for a long time. So I don't think anybody wants to see the yellow cabs go away. So I think we need to do everything that makes them stay, makes the drivers earn a living that's fair and economical, and wants them to invest in a medallion. So I think we need to try to keep the value of the medallion within reason. It can't fluctuate up and down. We need to do things that don't make that happen. So I think a lot of the things that are in place now are the right things, but it's like anything else. In order to keep that balance with everything going on and the changes ahead, we need to continually monitor that. But I think we're starting to emerge in the right direction.
You think they're out of the garages? There are more cars out of the garages now?
Some are coming out, and I think the fact that there's more of a desire to travel, and I think people are coming out more. I mean, I work in Manhattan. My firm basically worked remotely for a long time. Now we're back 2 3 days a week, trying to get people to come back more and more. And I'm in Manhattan 2 3 4 days a week myself, and I see it getting busier, which
I'm here
makes me
seven
feel
days a
happy.
week.
And I no, I believe it. I live in Brooklyn, so I travel back and forth. But I see the change, and I think it's a good thing. And I personally try to use a cab when I'm in the central business district, and I hail them, and I don't use the app for that. I actually try to
I have to
find
be
one.
dead before I use the
So,
app.
but I think that does give them an opportunity for additional rides. So I know the pricing could be problematic, but I think it's another way they could hopefully have more rides as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other suggestions on yellow? And will the green have any impact? And I hope you're all against charging the yellows for congestion pricing.
Sure. So, um, thank you, Mr. Sorrentino, for covering much of this subject. I have used the apps Curb and Arrow in the past, and I agree that the user experience could use an update. Um, and that is one way to make the yellow taxis more competitive. Another is to explore more of a formal partnership with paratransit services.
Yes.
And another is to explore the possibility of things like parcel or meal deliveries offered by yellow taxis. Those are just some of the ideas to explore in terms of congestion pricing. The goal, one of the two goals, other than subsidizing the MTA, is to reduce congestion in the central business
I'm
district.
aware of the goal.
Okay. So in order to reduce private car usage in the central business district of Manhattan, I think that taxis and for-hire vehicles are an essential ingredient of that service. And so I think that when the state evaluates this possibility of having a surcharge on these vehicles, I hope they would take into account how necessary these vehicles are for people to get from door to door.
And they already charge a lot.
Yes.
Any other suggestions for the yellow cabs? And what about my green cabs? I love those green cabs.
So lots of suggestions on yellow caps. I would just say combining that question with the medallions and storage. I think we essentially need to increase vehicle utilization, which in part is a function of the demand and the economy, severely impacted by the pandemic, of course, right? But as Mr. Sorrentino suggested, about 800 medallions were released in the past year, and the ridership, the revenue all increased. So as the pandemic has come to an end, then hopefully we'll see ridership increase for yellow caps, which would then drive revenue and that segment of the industry more viable. Yeah.
Yay, Beta. Go Beta.
Hello, Gale. Um, having driven a yellow cab, I think that there are things we can do, and one of the things that we can do in recognition of the contribution that the yellow cab industry has made and its historical relevance in New York City is that when possible, they should be given priority. This is particularly true at places like the airports, where now not only are they not, we just had this discussion, not only are they not given priority, they're given second class citizenship someplace because their locations are less desirable and than the and they're not and the for hire people who basically have no think that there's no control over what they do, and so they tend to operate sometimes in ways that are out of control. So where possible, the yellow cab should have the priority, whether it's locations or positions, whether it's spots on the street, especially in certain areas. That's the easiest way to deal with them. The idea of the green was an idea that probably was a little late in coming about. It would have been much better to have those green taxis 20, 30, 40 years ago. But when they were rolled out, it was almost overlapping with the private for hire vehicle and the apps, and it kind of got lost. And what ended up happening basically was the apps the apps ended up serving a lot of those communities that were needed, that were underserved, and the apps were the ones that ended up serving those underserved communities in those areas where the green taxis, were designated to assist riders. So that was an unfortunate thing, and that's why some of the new regs have kind of adjusted that, because maybe we have to look at that and figure out, okay, how do we take those drivers and what's the best use of an alternative kind of situation for those communities. But but clearly, yes, the yellow taxi should be number one, and they should be given priority where feasible and where it makes sense to do so.
I would just say uptown. I'm in Harlem all the time, and what will happen when the green cars go is that the apps cars will continue to be cash only. I always have cash on me because you can often get a for hire for cash, because that's what's going to happen. You do it. I've been doing illegal cabs my whole life. I love illegal cabs. You pay less money and you get a nice ride. So I'm just letting you know that's what's going to happen when the green cars go, at least in Manhattan. I don't know the other boroughs. So that'll be the new way of getting around, just FYI. Just finally, on electric cars, I mean, I'm all for them, obviously, but in Manhattan, it's a challenge. Wherever you have a street electric, then people park in that spot, so you can't plug in. It takes a long time because it's slower than what's in the garages. We have one mall. I don't think it's going to work for plug-ins. We have no malls. We have no space. We have no parking. I don't know where you're going to find this plug-in in the borough of Manhattan. So when you keep talking about it, it's got to have a whole different approach if we're going to do it here, because